Channel 1349 for another episode. We are here on this Saturday morning, a day before these NFL games get started, and it's a beautiful day down here in Houston, Texas. I'm joined by my father, William Judsons Sr. How's everything going for you?
Things going great. Just up and ready to go for another week.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's been a busy work week for me. I don't know what's going on. Maybe I caught something in the office, but I came up with I got a little stuffy nose, little fever, but we're gonna push through this thing. And now my kid's starting to catch it too. So, been a rough week from that sense, but other than that, I'm excited to jump into another weekend of sports. So, we'll go ahead and talk about how we did last week in the Circa Millions contest. I finished 3-2 for the weekend. I know you finished 4-1. So this is the last quarter for the season to compete for that $100,000 before we then take a look at the overall standings to see where we end up finishing. So go ahead and tell us about how you did this week and how you felt about your picks this past week.
Pretty good. This past week, shoot, I messed around and lost one, and the one that I lost, I didn't understand that because I thought I had nailed that thing. I took the Minnesota Vikings minus 5.5 over the Atlanta Falcons, and that was an easy game. Tampa Bay minus 7, and they won their game. The 49ers minus 4, they won their game. And on Monday night, the Bengals minus 6, they won their game. The only game I lost was the game that the Buffalo Bills. They ended up, I can't believe they lost to the Rams. I had a minus 3.5. They ended up losing the game outright, 44-42. But I just couldn't believe how the Rams were moving on them. That could have had me with a perfect week, 5-0. But 4-1, I got to do better than that. Got to get them all.
Yeah, I mean that was a tough one, the Rams and the Bills game. I stayed away from that because you never know with the Rams. They're just sneaky good. Some days they'll look really good, and then some days they won't play as well. The thing about the Rams though, it's a must win. They're in the playoffs now, if you want to call it that. They have to win every single week. And then it was a tough spot for the Bills, knowing that they're playing the Detroit Lions this week. It was kind of like a trap game a little bit. So I could see how that happened, but still, you finished 4-1 overall. As far as I'm concerned, I finished 3-2. Couple of games that I had some losses in there where I'm like, okay, I should have never took them, and one of them being the Philadelphia Eagles. Similar situation. They got the Pittsburgh Steelers coming in there this week. They're playing the Panthers last week. That's the game that I lost, one of them. And for me, I should have known, don't jump on that large number. I've talked with you about that before. Don't take those large numbers in the NFL. These guys, both sides are still NFL players. So when you're laying 12.5 points with a team that's not really that coached well in Nick Sirianni, that's just a tough task, a tough feat to overcome. So I lost when they didn't cover that 12.5 on the Panthers. And to be honest, the Panthers should have won that game. Xavier Legette, or whatever his name is, the receiver, from South Carolina. And if you haven't heard him talk, he's a gem. You guys should listen to how he sounds on interviews. You can tell he's from the deep woods of South Carolina. But he should have caught that ball. And he didn't catch it, and that ended up being the game. So they didn't cover on that game. And then the second game that I lost was the Atlanta Falcons. And we just talked about this last week about how you just can't trust the Atlanta Falcons. But that was a game that I had already taken and lost. We recorded this episode 1 that we just did. We recorded that after the Falcons had already lost. So if you all could tell when we were speaking about the Falcons, I had a little bit more vitriol in my tone and dislike for them. And so, like I told you last week, I'm done betting the Falcons for the rest of the year. So those were the two I lost. And it was just unacceptable. The Falcons stuck with the Vikings in the first half, and then once the second half came up, the Falcons reared their ugly heads. Bad coaching, bad quarterback play, can't stop anybody on defense, turning the ball over. So that's what happens when you touch the stove, you get burned. So never again. And then the 3 games that I won, I held my nose. I'm not gonna lie to you. I held my nose on 2 of those picks. I bet the Dolphins, and we talked about it last week. I was hoping the Dolphins wouldn't cover that game, but they did because they just made me mad the whole time. But they covered in overtime against the Jets, so I'll take that win. Cincinnati was the one where we were still awaiting the result when we recorded our last show on Monday. Cincinnati,
Got
they
lucky on that one.
we got lucky.
Blood punt, yeah. We got
We
lucky.
really got lucky. Cincinnati didn't really look like. I mean, they looked like the better offense, but overall, I'm not sure you could call them the better team after how that game played out. But we lucked up, and I learned my lesson. I'm going to the well one more time on Cincinnati this week, and we'll talk about the picks coming up. But Cincinnati is another team. Cincinnati, the Dolphins, and the Falcons are teams that I just do not like to back when it comes to betting. So Cincinnati won for me. The Dolphins, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers. I felt fine about Pittsburgh. I felt like that was a good spot playing Cleveland in a rematch from when they lost earlier this year in the snow. So Pittsburgh covered that number easily. It was -7, and I went 3-2. So looking to go 5-0 this week. So as we I know overall for the year I'm 35-35. So I'm sitting at a clean and smooth 50%. I was just under that line last week, and I gained a game. So now I'm sitting at 35-35. What's your record for this contest?
41 and 28 with one tie, so that's 58.6. So I'm looking to try to get over the 60% mark. So I got to just do well this week. Can't have anything close to 3-2. Really don't want 4-1. I'm really looking for 5-0.
Okay. All right. Good. Good. So, as we move over and talk about the picks this week, we'll start with the games that we agree on, right? The games that we both bet. So, I know we both chose the New York Jets, and we both chose the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Let's start with the Jets. What made you come to that your handicap on the Jets as far as playing Jacksonville this week?
Well, the personnel that the Jets have is just more superior than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence is out, so I'm thinking that the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, and them, they have to have some kind of pride. You got Devontae Adams, you got the other receiver over there. You got, you got your running backs.
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson plus the running back that's pretty good. So I'm just thinking they're gonna go down there. They lost a game to the Dolphins last week that they felt they should have won. I don't know why, but I tell you what, if they can't beat Jacksonville, they can't beat anybody because Jacksonville basically has tanked, and it's a 3.5 point favorite. They should be able to beat them by more than 4 points. So that's why I took them.
Okay, good. Yeah, and for me, watching that game against the Dolphins, I don't know why you said you don't know why they thought they should have won. That was a game where the Jets were moving the ball up and down the field all game. Miami slipped through the cracks and got back in control of that game at the end, and we just knew once they went to overtime, we knew what was going to happen. But maybe that was fatigue on the Jets' part. But I must say, looking at that game last week, Aaron Rodgers is throwing the ball a lot better than he was earlier in the season. Now, it's come out in the
That's his first 300-yard game, and I don't know when. So that could be an anomaly. I don't know. So we'll see if he can do that again this week.
I understand that, but for me, it was just a matter of him throwing the ball. He looked comfortable. He was making some nice throws, and he has, it came out in the media earlier this week that he's been dealing with injuries all year, and we don't know if that's an excuse or what, but maybe he's feeling a little bit better throwing the ball. So I think the Jets will be able to move the ball. They're playing in warm weather down in Jacksonville, and just to think about this, since Mac Jones has came in to this starting role with Jacksonville. He's 1-4 straight up. Mac Jones, they happened to beat your guy last week, Will Levis. So I don't really count that
Right.
win. You love Will Levis, especially when he came out. I tried to tell you I didn't like him, but I think this is a game where the Jets can cover the 3, and if they can't cover the 3, then it's been an embarrassing season so far. It'll be even more embarrassing. I'm on the Jets this week, so we agree there. Moving on to Cincinnati. What were your thoughts on Cincinnati?
Well, Cincinnati, let me see. Cincinnati, the reason I took Cincinnati, they're playing the Titans, and their quarterback, Will Levis, that is not my guy. And I just think that Cincinnati, they're really out of the playoffs, but a miracle can happen if they run the table. and they're hot right now. Nobody can cover Jamar Chase. That quarterback that you love so much for Cincinnati, he's doing a heck of a job. I mean, I think he's a great quarterback too. He's probably top 2 or 3 in the league. So I think they can go down to Tennessee in a must-win game for them because it means more to them than it does the Tennessee Titans. And that is -5. They should be able to cover that. Tennessee is horrible this year. I don't know about that coach, but they are just absolutely horrible. So I'm taking Cincinnati and the -5.
Okay, and I agree with that. But I will say this: I don't. You have selective amnesia. You like to forget guys who you love. When Will Levis came out, you were you were in love with him, and I've been saying it all since last year. Will Levis is no good. The Titans front office decided to choose Will Levis and the new coach that they have right now to replace Mike Vrabel. That's what the big rift in the office was. Mike Vrabel didn't like Will Levis. Tennessee liked him, and so they got rid of Mike Vrabel and they brought in an offensive coach. I have never liked Will Levis. You liked him coming out. Now you don't like him because you've seen how he's playing, but he's just not. There's a reason when you go to Penn State and you can't beat out Sean Clifford, who is a very pedestrian free agent NFL quarterback at best. When you can't beat out Sean Clifford and then you go down to Kentucky and play, there has to be something said about that. There's a reason why he couldn't beat out Penn State or Sean Clifford in Penn State. And I'm not trying to get on the man, but he just makes so many bad plays. It just makes me scratch my head. It makes me mad. Not that I take the Titans, but I can't stand bad quarterback play. And so
You can say that, but it's all about the coaching. It's all about who you surround him with. They've taken away his weapons. They've taken away Derrick Henry. That the offensive line is a little bit better than average. So you can say all you want to about Will Levis. Will Levis was a high draft choice. He
second
was
round pick.
he was a high draft choice, and Clifford
You
was
get ready to say top 15. He was a second
no,
round
no,
pick.
I was not getting ready to say top 15. He was a top draft choice. Second round, he made the team, and he played well last year against the Dolphins. Went down there and beat them. So
No, he
I,
didn't.
I just think
No, he didn't.
that
He didn't play
I
well. He didn't play well because we saw that game against the Dolphins. The Dolphins fumbled twice in their own territory, and he had short fields and scored. He didn't do anything. I can go back and pull those stats from last year. He didn't do anything against the Dolphins, Dad.
whether you have a short field, long field, you still have to make the plays. They were playing down in Miami against the Dolphins, who had to win that game, and that really ultimately destroyed their season. So
Great
Will
game by the
Levis,
Tennessee Titans defense.
yeah,
Great game by their defense.
okay, well,
Their offense didn't do anything, and I don't care if you surround him with John Taylor, Jerry Rice, Emmitt Smith, Roger Craig, Tony Baselli, Orlando Pace. He's no good. Okay, they had
well,
they had they had Derrick Henry last year. They had DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley this year. Tony Pollard is no slouch. He's getting ready to run for 1,000 yards. So
he's not
Westbrook,
Derrick Henry. He's
it
not
he's
Derrick
getting
Henry.
ready to run for 1,000 yards on a team that is 2-11 against the spread this year.
Well,
They don't even cover the number.
Well, you know what? Against the spread, there you go again. Try using your hunch. Try using your hunch. And you know what? I hope he is bad this week because we both took Cincinnati, so we
Okay,
can move on.
okay, we can move on. But I just wanted to ask about a hunch. Did your hunch tell you that he was a good player coming out of college?
No, I mean I didn't focus on him that much. I thought he was a decent player,
Oh,
just
okay.
like I thought Marcus Mariota was, and you thought Jameis Winston was. Well, Jameis Winston is the type of quarterback that'll keep you in the game and he'll take you out of the game.
But he's
So
in the game. Marcus
hey,
Mariota
you
is a
know,
backup. At least Jameis is in the game, and he's a better player than Marcus Mariota.
okay,
He just
all right.
is.
He's only in the game because of injuries. That's the only reason.
Okay, well, we can look at their stats, and I guarantee you he's got more everything than Mariota, including picks. I admit that. He's got more passing yards, more touchdowns, more games started. Will you admit that?
You're a stat man, so you might be right. But when it comes to playing a quarterback, I don't know. I hold
So
my
you
nose, as you say, and,
so
and, and flip a coin. So
so
I don't know.
okay. Well, like I was saying, I'm not on Will Levis. So
Okay, well,
um
I'm not. I'm not this week either. And hopefully he will be exactly who you say he is so that we can win that game.
And this is just a request to the TV airwaves. Can we get the Will Levis mayonnaise commercial off of TV? I don't want to see him take another bite of mayonnaise until he can at least not throw an interception and cost his team the game. But anyway, getting back to my pick, the Titans this year are 2-11 against the spread. This is just a team that doesn't meet their expectations, whether they're favored or whether they're an underdog. They don't play well against the spread. Cincinnati's playing their second road game in a row, and Cincinnati's 11-4 against the spread the last 15 games. So I like Cincinnati on the road to cover a team against a team that's not very good on offense.
Well, I agree with you on that. That's one thing we do agree on.
Okay, so
Moving along.
let's move on. So tell me about your next pick that you had.
Well, I've got the Washington Commanders going into New Orleans, -7.5. That's a kind of big number, but I'm gonna lay it because I just think that the Saints have kind of thrown in the towel, especially when Derek Carr is not gonna play. They're gonna start the third string quarterback because the other guy, what's the tight end that they have playing quarterback sometime?
Taysom Hill is out, but it probably would have been Spencer Rattler. Hill hadn't played quarterback this year.
Spencer Rattler is not going to start. They're starting this other guy. So I really believe that the Commanders are going to go down there and take control. Plus, they have to, in order to kind of stay their seeding, they need to kind of keep winning. So they have a good team. They've rested. They got 2 weeks to prepare for them. I expect them to go down there and cover that 7.5 number. Down
and viewers, just so we know, the quarterback that's starting with this week, his name is Jake Haener. That's his name.
Haener, yeah, Jake Haener, and he's a kind of good story for them. His parents, quit their jobs to come watch him play. I'm sure they'll be there, and they'll be rooting for him. But the Washington Commanders, they're resting right now from 2 weeks, so I expect them to come in and do a great job and win that for me. So that's why I took them.
Okay, yeah, I couldn't jump on it. That looks good on paper, but I'm just gonna leave that one alone because you never know. Derek Carr, he doesn't play defense for the Saints, so maybe the defense will play inspired down there, and Washington will be celebrating and happy to get out there with a game-winning field goal.
The two is Lattimore. He's coming back this week, and he says that the Saints made a mistake when they let him go. So he's going to add to that Washington Commanders defense, and I don't expect them to score more than 10 points. And if Washington can score 18, then I'm good. It's golden for me.
I would tell, and I'll look in the camera and say this: Marcus Lattimore is no Deion Sanders. He's no Champ Bailey. Quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if he had bubble wrap on him while he was out there because he's always hurt. He is always hurt. So that's why they got rid of him. He can never play.
Against the Saints, though.
He can never play. Well, New Orleans not going to be throwing the ball like that. They're going to try to play defense and create turnovers and run the ball. Now, Alvin Kamara, he has been out this week with an illness. He's been sick. So we'll see how he looks. Besides that game when they played the Cowboys, Kamara hadn't looked like himself this year. I know they just gave him a new deal, and maybe that's got to do with how the team has been struggling at quarterback, but we'll see what happens with the Saints this week, and I hope that Washington can cover for you. I will say this last thing before we move on to one of my picks. Right now, 86% of the money is on Washington, and 65% of the bets is on Washington. So whenever I see heavy numbers like that, that makes me a little weary because we know how Vegas can get. When everybody's on one side, the other side ends up coming through. So I hope that one does come through for you.
Well, like I said, those analytics and those numbers, well, you got to just go by your gut feeling. You got to go by the situation. Washington needs to win this game. They've already just about wrapped up a playoff spot. They're not going to win a division probably, but if Philadelphia slips and they win, they got a chance. So come on now, that's whatever the public and the numbers and all of that. Let's play football.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. I think there has to be a nice, healthy balance between the two. You just can't go off of all hunch, but that's just my opinion. And you've gotten lucky this year with doing it how you do it, and so you just keep doing your thing.
Rather be lucky than good.
There you go. So moving on to my next pick, I'm picking the Houston Texans down here in Houston. They're playing the Miami Dolphins. I got the Houston Texans at -2.5. The Dolphins have been playing better as of late. The last 5 games, they're 4-1. I'm trying to push for a playoff spot. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they will keep playing hard. I don't think this is a great matchup for the Dolphins on offense or defense. I like what DeMeco Ryans does for the Texans from a defensive standpoint. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and this is really a game that the Texans have to win. They've got 2 tough games coming up, the Chiefs and the Ravens, both in the AFC, just like the Dolphins. So we know that Houston's probably going to win this division, but they need to start stacking some wins together to get ready for the playoffs. And so for me, I think the Texans are going to be able to run the ball this week with Joe Mixon, and then we'll see what happens with Nico Collins. Hopefully Jalen Ramsey can earn his money for the Dolphins. They should put Ramsey on Collins and then go from there. But I like the Texans to cover this week, -2.5 against the Dolphins.
Well, I started to bet the Dolphins on that. This is a game that the Dolphins have to win. And the Dolphins do have an outside shot at making the playoffs. And their schedule is somewhat favorable for them. So, but this is a tough one. And I must admit, and the quarterback, of Houston, he just hadn't looked like himself this year. I don't know if the league is catching up with him or what, but I'm not sure about that. And I believe Houston is going to automatically win their division, so it's not quite as critical for them. If the Dolphins lose, they are absolutely out. Tua has gotten hot. McDaniel, I'm sure, is going to cook up some stuff that DeMeco Ryans hadn't seen. It will be a tough game. It's at Houston, but I don't know about that. I mean, I stayed away from it because, Houston can come out and play well, but then again, they have not looked good lately, so we'll see.
Yep, and I think the Texans are a tougher team than the Dolphins. So I don't know. The Dolphins are a front-running team, like you said, so they can come out and look like world beaters, but they can also be bad. So you never know. I'll take the team that I think is a little bit more consistent, and I agree with you. C.J. Stroud has been okay this year. I think that first year he burst on the scene. They got luckier than usual last year, and now and I told my friends this that live out here. You can't put too much stock in them. This is an average team in a bad division, so they look better than what they really are. But I think they will, coming off a bye, I think they'll get the win this week against the Dolphins.
Okay. Well, my next pick, I took the Cowboys +2.5 at Carolina. Now, the reason I did that is because it's very similar situation with the Jets. The Cowboys have to win this game. I mean, they have some pride. If they're gonna show some pride, they're underdogs 2.5. So if they win by 1 point, 2 points, whatever, it's good for me. Or if Carolina wins by 1 or 2, I'm good. But Bryce Young has looked better, and the last 2 or 3 games, Carolina has looked better. They've almost won some games. They've given teams fits. And they really are playing loosely now because nobody's really taking them very seriously. But the Cowboys, they definitely need to get it going. So if they can't beat Carolina at Carolina, just similar to the Jets, then, hey, I'm done with the Cowboys. But I think that they have enough. Michael Parsons, C.D. Lamb, those guys, they've got to show some pride and win this football game.
This is a game where I'm on the complete opposite side of the fence from you. I don't think this is a game that Dallas will win traveling out to Charlotte. As you said earlier, Bryce Young has been playing better, and when you look at him and Cooper Rush, the Carolina Panthers have the better quarterback this week. So I think they have the better quarterback. I think the Cowboys have the better skill guys. Running back,
And a better coach.
Yeah, that's fine, but you said coaching doesn't matter. It's about
I never said that.
You said it's about the Jimmy and the
60,
Joes.
40.
Oh, 60 and 40. Analytics.
Right.
You're going off. You're doing analytics for the Jimmys and Joes and coaching. Okay, so
Right.
Oh, got it. Okay, so for me, the Panthers are playing at home. They're playing a lot better. I like Chuba Hubbard this week running the ball. Overshown, that number 13, the linebacker for the Cowboys, he's out for the year.
Parsons is playing though.
Yeah, but Overshown is a big-time player for them, so I like Carolina at home this week, and we'll see what happens.
Well, you know what? You don't like it that much because that wasn't one of your picks.
But I like if you make me pick them, if you make me pick the two, I like Carolina more than Dallas. Dallas hasn't shown me anything that would make me want them this week.
Well, hopefully I can win that one because I'm trying to go 5-0. I just think the Cowboys have to show some pride, and everybody's saying that Jerry Jones is going to keep the coach. I think Mike
That's what I
McCarthy.
said last week. I told you that.
Well, that's what everybody's saying, but we don't know what Jerry Jones is. He's unpredictable. But I tell you what, you mess around and lose to Carolina and embarrass Jerry Jones like that, he may not make the flight back to Dallas. He just may not. So I expect the Cowboys to win this game. They really should have won the game last week, but hey, I expect the Cowboys to win.
What's the saying about ifs and nuts and candy? What's the saying?
Well, it's Christmas time, so you can all have a Merry Christmas.
Okay, well, I'll
That's
say
okay.
this. Well, you said they should have won last week. Okay. If my aunt had balls, she'd be my uncle. That's all we need to know about that. Okay?
Well, hey, you know what? Hey, I just want the win. Carolina, you can win the game. You can win by one or two, but that's all.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to my next pick. And this is probably the easiest pick for me. Now, I am a little concerned because George Pickens will be out this week, but I felt the best picking the Pittsburgh Steelers, taking the 5 points on the road at Philly this week. This is just a simple Mike Tomlin being in an underdog role. His team always plays well. And this year, the Steelers are 5-0 against the spread when they've been the underdog. And they're actually, when you look at how they play this year against the spread, they're 10-3. So they're tied for the best record against the spread in the NFL. And when I just look at Mike Tomlin and the coaching matchup against Nick Sirianni, I like what I see. I love Mike Tomlin. He's been a heck of a coach. He can coach my team any day. He's the ultimate motivator. And when you look at the Eagles right now, there's a little bit of turmoil in that locker room. Jalen Hurts, your guy. Jalen Hurts is okay, but I'm not sold on him. Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown have had this rift going on. A.J. Brown is mad because he's not getting the ball as much as they should, and he's as much as he should, and he's just as selfish as he could be. I wouldn't trade him. It's stupid because they're winning football games. He's gotten $90 million, whatever the extension is. He's gonna go over 1,000 yards, and he's complaining and pouting because he's not getting the ball enough. Like, these guys are selfish in the NFL. That is selfish. And Nick Sirianni, see, I feel like Mike Tomlin would have nipped that in the bud a little bit. But, hey, they've got those issues going on. I think that could be a potential problem.
He never nipped it with Antonio Brown. Never, you know.
They got him out of there. They traded him.
You know, yeah.
They traded him. They traded him.
But
So that was his way of saying, hey, you're not bigger than the team. They got rid of him. And you see what happened to Antonio Brown after that.
Well, I tell you what, that's a game that I stayed away from, and I'm pulling for Pittsburgh, you know, because I like Mike Tomlin, and I want you to do well because you got some ground to make up. You're way behind me, so you know I want you to kind of.
Here we go. He's worried about me again.
No. All I'm saying is,
don't worry about my record, man.
I want you to do well. You know, you're my son. You know, that analytic stuff that you're doing, that you're using most of the time, it's got you 50-50. And that you got to use a little bit more than that. But I will tell you this: I'm pulling for the Steelers and Jalen.
We don't care about who you're pulling for. What do you think is going to happen in this game? What's your hunch tell you? Since you don't use any kind of statistics.
You know what? If you put a gun to my head, I would probably, that game's at Philly, the way that Saquon Barkley is playing, I would probably have to go along with Philly on that one. But
Okay.
I think it'll be a very, very close game. You know, and one reason why Jalen Hurts hadn't been passing well, he hadn't thrown for 200 yards in a number of games, is because the way Saquon is playing. If you can run the ball and can't nobody stop you, this man's probably gonna get over 2,000 yards this year. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, just like the Steelers were doing earlier in the year when they had to play Justin Fields. You just play to the strengths of the team. So A.J. Brown needs to shut his mouth. They're winning. But you know what? I hope that Pittsburgh can go in there. If they can go in there and win that game, they'll really show me something. But I actually think that the Eagles will probably win that game. That's why I stayed away from it, because it can go either way.
Yeah, I think probably the best play in this game, to be honest with you, is the under. Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, I know Pittsburgh for a fact, they want to run the ball and just play defense and limit the other team's opportunities on offense. And like you said, Saquon Barkley has been unbelievable this year. And so Philadelphia, they're a running team right now. That's what the game plan is. And so A.J. Brown, just like you said, he needs to shut up, folk do what he can do and be ready for the playoffs. You know they're gonna come back to you in the playoffs, but for me, I just like the coaching matchup, and I love Mike Tomlin in an underdog role. So I'm going with the Steelers this week at +5.
Okay, that's great. My last game that I have is Arizona at home -6 over the Patriots. And I just think that the Patriots are another one of those teams that, made a bad coaching decision. I don't know what happened between Belichick and the Patriots, whether he wanted out or whether the owner, Kraft, wanted him out, but they have not improved. The quarterback situation has got kind of crazy for them. They got May in there. Now May he's a top draft choice and he's playing fairly well. But this is a game that Arizona has to win. With the way that the Rams are playing, they have got to win. They got to, they if they don't win this game, they can kind of almost kiss their playoff hopes goodbye. And Marvin Harrison Jr. has had a really great year. Kyler Murray, your guy, has been on and off this year, and hopefully he'll be on because -6 points, Patriots traveling all the way across country. Uh, I just think that Arizona, the way that they can play at home, they should win this game by -6.
And here's another game. I hate to say it, but I'm on the opposite side of you. I'm pulling for you, but 6 points is a lot. Arizona hadn't the last month or so. They haven't been playing well, and I don't know if it's because teams have kind of figured out. And I say it all the time. They figured out how to play Kyler Murray. I liked him coming out of college. I like him in the NFL. I don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's a guy that can get you 9-8, get you 10-7, but they're never going to win a Super Bowl with him playing quarterback unless they stack the team with the 85 Bears or something like that. But for me, if you keep Kyler Murray in the pocket, do not let him roll out and get on the edge of your defense. He can't see over the line. He's too little. You can be competitive with them, and Seattle has shown you the blueprint on how to beat them. Seattle doesn't have a bunch of horses on defense, and so the thing that I would be thinking about if I'm handicapping this game is Gerard Mayo. I don't think he's a good coach, but I think he does know defense, and New England does have some players on defense. Drake May gives them a wide variance on offense. Some days they're going to look really good because he's athletic and he can run, but then some days because of his experience and his raw talent, they can look bad on offense. So,
Defense, the Patriots, the defense is the worst they've looked in many, many years. So he does know defense, but he
well, are
has
you
been
talking about to
stopping
the eye, or are you talking about the eye, or are you talking about statistics?
statistically, and to the eye.
Okay,
They
I'm
are
a
they are 3-11.
okay. What's their ranking on defense since you said statistically?
Well, I don't know their record, but I looked at it a little bit, and they were definitely below middle of the pack. And the Patriots have always been like a top five defense under Belichick.
Okay,
So
let me
you
ask you
know,
this. Let me ask you this. Who do you think has a? Do you think the Rams have a better offense than the Cardinals, or whose offense do you think is better, the Rams or the Cardinals?
I would say the Rams when they're healthy.
Okay, so how did the Rams look when they played the Patriots a couple weeks ago when they had both receivers? How did the Rams look on
See, that's
offense?
what I'm talking about. Any team in the NFL can be any team on any given day. It's that's why you call it an upset. I don't know. Some teams match up better. Some teams are motivated differently when they play certain teams. So I don't know. All I'm concerned about is winning this week. The Cardinals need to win that game. Patriots are traveling all the way across the country. They are trying to probably mail it in so they can get a high draft choice. You know, I tell you what, I am going with the Cardinals. They have to win, and they need to win by 7 points or
Okay,
more.
well, I know you didn't look at the stats. I'm not gonna call you out, but the Patriots defense is definitely not towards the bottom of the pack as far as their stats are concerned. I'm not gonna jump into that, but their defense is a little bit better than you're giving them credit for. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
Okay, but the team is a little worse than what you're saying. So if the defense is playing, what my point is this: when Belichick had that defense, it was playing much, much better than it's playing now. He knows how to take away the team's most dangerous weapons. If Belichick was coaching that team, Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray would not be getting hardly anything. But now they're gonna go crazy because they have to win this game.
Okay, well, all I will say is the Patriots aren't getting ready to play the 1968 Green Bay Packers. They're playing the Arizona Cardinals, who I believe might be a game under 500 at this point. They
Right.
started out well. They're just not that good of a team, and so
Okay.
hopefully they cover that six for you. I would. That's a game that I would personally stay away from.
Okay. Well, go ahead. And
My
what's
last
your
game,
last game?
yeah, my last game that I have, and this is a tough one because we know how. But
This is crazy. This pick. This pick.
I like what they're doing up there in the Motor City. I'm taking the Detroit Lions minus 2.5 against the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are coming off an emotional game last week out there in LA. The thing that scares me about the Buffalo Bills, I don't know what it is, but Josh Allen, he looks almost like a world beater when they play indoors and on turf. The thing that's scary about it, when you really think about it, I'm a numbers guy. The Bills got dominated last week by the Rams offense. They got dominated. The Bills only when the Bills were on offense, they only had the ball for 21 minutes. But the scary part is they scored 42 points in 21 minutes. So when you think about that, imagine if they would have been able to get some more stops on the Rams, stopping the Rams offense. If they had the ball 30 minutes, the Bills probably would have easily won that game. And so
That's more on the Rams defense, and Sean McDermott could have actually won
Sean
that game.
McVay
No, McDermott
for the
actually
Bills.
could
So
have
it's on the
won that.
Bills defense then.
No. It's on the Rams defense. But another point is Sean McDermott. They could have won that game had it not been for that quarterback sneak call. Everybody's talking about that. So
That you're taking a little bit far. They would have had a chance to make three stops to get the ball back. They wouldn't have won the game if they didn't do that quarterback sneak.
they'd had a better chance and clock management. I mean, but the thing about it is, I don't know why people are on him so hard. You got a big 6'5", 230-pound quarterback that you expect to make it,
You
and he
can't do
just
that.
didn't make it.
You
He
can't do
just
that
didn't
when you
make it.
know when you have three timeouts. That's
Of course you
unacceptable. You
can't.
can't do
Of
that.
course you can't do it after the fact. But had
No,
he
before
done it,
when he was doing it, I went crazy. You cannot run a quarterback sneak when you got a minute and a half left and you need all three timeouts when you go back on defense. You can't do that.
how far did he have to go?
It's like 2 yards. It was like
Hey,
on the 2 yard line. You can't do that. You got to
but
throw it, but you can't do that in that situation. But getting back to my point, Buffalo was scary as far as offense is concerned. They were moving it and doing whatever they wanted. And Buffalo, even at the beginning of the year, I told you this. You were on the Dolphins, but I told you Buffalo was going to win the division easily. So I think Buffalo is a very good team. But going into Detroit, this is now they playing with the big boys. And for me, looking at what I see on film when I'm watching Buffalo, they're a nickel defense. They're really small on defense, small up front, small in the secondary. They like to play a lot of DBs, and they defend well against the pass. But Detroit has the best offensive line in the league. They have a great scheme. They can run it. They can throw it deep to Jamison Williams. They can throw it over the middle to Amon-Ra St. Brown. They got two good backs. This is just a game for me where if we're handicapping the Super Bowl, let's say these teams are in the Super Bowl and we put them on a neutral field, I've got Detroit 2 points better than Buffalo. So then when you take it back to and this is just a tutorial on how to handicap games. If you and I'm not talking to you in particular. I'm talking to the public. When you're the way the pros handicap games is they rank every team from the top to bottom and they say, okay, Detroit is 2 points better than the average team. So and so is 3 points less than the average team, and then that's how Vegas gets their spreads, right? So I'm just telling you, if I'm looking at this game and we put both of these teams on a neutral field, I would favor Detroit -2. Now, when you take into the factor that they're playing at home, that crowd is going to be loud. That's a home point advantage of 2.5 points. So if I'm a bookmaker and I'm making this game, I would have Detroit at -4.5 at home. And this line is at 2.5. So it's almost like an auto pick for me. I got a fire on this. So I'm gonna take Detroit and hope that Jared Goff doesn't turn the ball over and hope that they can cover 2.5.
well, to be honest with you, if I were forced to make the pick, I would probably go with Detroit too. But that's just too scary for me to kind of take when I'm trying to go 5-0.
Yeah,
I don't
Buffalo
want to
coming off a
I don't
loss. I
want to
can see
flip it.
that.
I don't want to flip like that. No.
Okay. So yeah, that rounds up our picks. I'll go ahead and summarize mine real quick. I had the Houston Texans minus 2.5 against the Dolphins. The New York Jets minus 3 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're both taking Cincinnati at -5 at Tennessee. We're both taking the Jets -3 at Jacksonville. And then I've got Pittsburgh +5 in Philadelphia this week. And then, as you guys just heard, I'm taking the Detroit Lions -2.5 at home against Buffalo.
And taking Washington Commanders -7.5 away at New Orleans. I am taking the Jets -3 points at the Jags. I am taking Cincinnati -5, just like you are. I'm taking the Cowboys getting 2.5 points at Carolina. And at home, I am taking the Arizona Cardinals -6, and they're playing the Patriots. And by the way, I just looked up the stats. The Patriots, there's 32 teams in the league. They're ranked 20th defensively overall. So that's less than half. And that's never been that way.
Defense overall. But what are they ranked against the pass? What are they rated against the run?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
That does matter.
Doesn't matter. So
it does.
They're less than half. That's what I said, below half. They are. And another thing is, all I need is from to win by 7 points.
Okay, now what's the Cardinals defense? Because we know Jonathan Gannon, he's a defensive coach. What's the Cardinals defense rank?
Well, let me see. The Arizona Cardinals is, let's see, they're ranked one spot ahead of New England.
Okay, all right. So
now offensively, let's look at offensively.
It'll be a pillow fight per se.
Well, as long as they win by 7 points, that's good enough for me. And New England is ranked 31st on offense, where Arizona is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They're 13th. So they should win that game. They're playing at home. But anyway, that's enough about the picks.
All I can say is good luck.
Okay, well, thanks.
All right, so transitioning over to next topic that I thought was crazy to me. I saw that Tua Tagovailoa this week, he had his car broken into, and so now he's hired a full-time security, I guess for him and maybe his property. I don't understand why these guys didn't have this to begin with. Even somebody like, thoughts and prayers out to the CEO of United Healthcare when he got offed. I'm not going to say the word because YouTube will knock it off, but he was, eliminated a couple weeks ago. I don't know why he wasn't walking around with security. When you're these celebrities or these athletes, these prominent figures in these situations, I just don't understand why you wouldn't have security at all times. We know that Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Joe Burrow is another one. This is a new trend. It started a few years ago where these athletes, when they're on the road playing these games or even at home playing these games, these thieves like to break into their houses. Did they have that issue when you were playing back in the league, Dad?
I remember that happening. What I remember happening a couple of times is guys getting their jewelry or personal belongings stolen out of the opposing team's locker room, but not somebody's home being invaded. Well, with today's, with the social media and the ways that you can kind of look up players' addresses and that's a little bit tough to handle. So, making the kind of money they're making, they should absolutely, home and away games, they should absolutely have someone patrolling, their home. And I don't understand it either. Tua was lucky they just got his cars, but he said that was too close for comfort for him. But these other guys, they've got to look out. And the NFL, I understand the NFL security, NFL PA have had seminars with these guys to tell them to protect themselves and their families by hiring security. They're making a lot of money. They take care of nutrition. They got personal trainers. They've got people that manage their homes for them. They've got assistants. So, hey, they should invest in security for their homes.
Yeah, if I was telling you the other day, if I was in the NFL and I'm Joe Burrow or some big time quarterback making all this money, I'm making $55-60 million a year, I would do one or two things. I don't know if this is legal to do this, but during my contract negotiations, I would negotiate. I want $1 million a year allocated towards security for me and my home when we're on the road and playing home games and when I'm traveling. I want $1 million a year allocated towards that. And if you can't negotiate that, I would spend my own money on, or it's still my own money, but I would do it myself. I would have 3 or 4 security positioned in the driveway, and I'd have 3 or 4 off-duty police officers positioned behind the home. So the whole perimeter is going to be covered. So we don't have to deal with that. Now, I guess, when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, they live in these nice neighborhoods, sometimes gated communities. They think that they're untouchable. But just like you said,
That's too much. Three in the front and three in the back. This is not Scarface. You just have one security guard, and that'll be fine patrolling your home. Because
well,
if you got a security guard in the front, the burglars aren't going to try to get in from the back. Come on, man. We're not talking about dealing with Al Pacino and some of those guys, the Godfather. We're not dealing with that. This dude needs security, and as far as that negotiation, yeah, you could get negotiate whatever you want to. Instead of getting 100 million, the team just paid 99 million and do that. But I would not want the team to provide my security. Let me
no,
provide
no, no, no,
my
no, 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 no,
let me
no.
provide my own.
Just give me the extra money towards it. That's all.
Yeah, okay, well, they'll just take $1 million off your contract. That's all.
Well, like I said, I want there to be, I want word to get around town. Oh, this Joker Will Justin, he got 3 officers in the front, 3 officers in the back. Don't ever try it with him. So that would be, I like to steal your saying on this. You say smashing an ant with a sledgehammer. That's what I'm doing. I'm taking the extra precaution. I'm not going cheap on security. If I'm allocating $1 million a year towards it, then that should be able to warrant 3 cops in the front, 3 in the back. That's what I want. I
Well,
got kids at the house too, so
just put some security gates around your home. Maybe if you're living in a gated community, and you can have someone to stay. You, at the most, I would have one person on the outside, one person on the inside. But I would have three in the front, three in the back, three on the side, three on top of the roof, three at the beginning of the street. I would not have that.
that's what I want. Look, we went to Spain not too long ago. We saw some of the cops walking the street with the big AR-15s. That's what I want. So, okay, so now let's transition over to college football. And as we know, the biggest headline right now, it's official. We talked about it a little bit on the pod last or earlier this week, but now it's official. Bill Belichick is going to the University of North Carolina. What are your first thoughts on the hire?
Well, initially, I thought that they wouldn't hire. I mean, I thought that he wouldn't accept anything like that. But the more and more I think about it, I think it's a great move because, after listening to his interview, after listening to Lombardi, who will be his general manager's interview, I think that's a great move. And I know people probably don't believe this, but he consulted with probably Nick Saban. He probably consulted with Deion Sanders too because they doing those Affleck commercials together. They probably have a close relationship. Just ask them about coaching in college football. I think that he's gonna do a great job. And by what I'm hearing, I have been on that campus, but I hear it's one of the great campuses in America. And now the chancellor has decided to put money into it, and he's gonna run that thing like a pro team. And because that's what it's coming to with that NIL name, like image and likeness situation, then you have to treat it that way. So they just have to worry about who to give the money to because you can't give them to everybody. And it's one of those things. So I think it's going to do well. And when he plays against teams in the ACC, he's automatically going to have a coaching advantage over them. They can't X and O him out at all. Now here's a situation where the X's and O's will beat the Jimmys and Joes because University of Miami, Mario Cristobal, he's got a lot of great athletes down there. But going up against Bill Belichick, he will shut them down. So imagine Bill Belichick coaching against Wake Forest and North Carolina State and Duke. Those are automatic victories. He'll get the recruits out of North Carolina. He'll start going back up in that Virginia Tidewater area. They'll shop in Georgia and they'll get some speed out of Florida. So I expect him to do very, very well. And he's saying forget the NFL because the NFL now seems to be full of politics where you've got all these different layers that you need to go through in order to be successful. So I think it's a good move.
I couldn't agree more. That's kind of what I've been screaming from the mountaintops. It didn't seem real at first because you just don't expect somebody like Bill Belichick to go down to the University of North Carolina. But you're right. When you look at the grand scheme of things, North Carolina is a national brand on the basketball side. But think about it. They're very similar to like a Stanford, a UCLA. This should be a school that's a national recruiter for football. They do it in basketball and soccer and their other sports that they win a lot of championships in. They have a chance to awaken a sleeping giant with North Carolina. It's a tough school to get into, but from what I've been reading, he's going to have all of the support from the administration. They're dumping a lot of money into this thing. And you touched on it a little bit, Dan. Let's talk about it. The ACC. Taking the ACC out of it for a second, look at what the coach from James Madison did at Indiana this year. He went to Indiana, got a couple of transfers in there, implemented his scheme, his confidence into the program, and they're in the playoffs after 1 year playing in the Big Ten. They played a favorable schedule. I'll give them that, but they're in the playoffs. So it's not going to take long for North Carolina to turn this thing around with Bill Belichick. Now, getting back to the ACC, we talked about this. Who are you taking? I don't care what the talent looks like. Who are you taking if you got Bill Belichick going against Mario Cristobal? Who are you taking if you got Bill Belichick going against the University of Virginia, Virginia Tech? All of those coaches, when you think about it, it's not like North Carolina is their cupboard of talent is bare. They're going to get the talent. And just like you said, I've been doing some research. I've been reading up on this thing. They are going to treat it like a professional football organization. They're going to have, they call it director of personnel. They're going to have them scouting the portal. They're going to have somebody that's directly looking at the high school players, and they're going to run it. They're doing it like a cost analysis or dollar per player. They already said they can't pay everybody. They're going to pay the players that they need to. If I'm a top quarterback in the nation, why wouldn't I want to go for 3 years or so, hurry up and earn my degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and play under a coach that's widely regarded as one of the best coaches in NFL history, who also coached Tom Brady? You already know that they're going to have Brady down there visiting, Gronk, all of those guys that played in New England. Yeah. Yeah, North Carolina's had some great players over the years. They're all going to come back now. What I see happening with this is very similar to what happened with Deion Sanders at Colorado that first year. It's going to be a lot of buzz around this program. I actually think it's a tad bit bigger because it's Belichick at North Carolina. That's a nice national brand. But here's the other thing. Florida State and Clemson, just a couple months ago, Dad, they were talking about, we're trying to get out of the ACC. We want to move to the SEC. Or the Big Ten. We're trying to get more money. I guarantee you, if you ask them that today, they want to stay right where they're at. That Belichick effect is going to bring lots of money to the ACC, and the effect of that is going to be huge on the ACC. So now North Carolina is more popular. If they do want to go to the SEC or the Big Ten, that Belichick factor, we don't know how long he's going to be there, but that's going to play into North Carolina being attractive as a school. And so I think give them a year or so, they'll be right there competing for the ACC championship and possibly a playoff berth.
We agree on that. And I've also heard rumors that North Carolina is looking at going into the Big Ten. So, hey, we'll see what happens, but I agree that that's a good move now.
All right. So, you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about, or just now when we were talking about Belichick going to North Carolina and how they're going to approach the NIL situation and getting good players in here. Did you happen to hear about that guy that's transferring from Florida? His name is Jake Pyburn. Did you hear about him?
Well, I heard about it, and I thought that was ridiculous. If he had done something like that with Bill Belichick, he'll tell him to hit the road. I mean, come on, guaranteed that he's gonna. I don't think Bill Belichick would guarantee anybody that they're gonna start and that sort of thing. So, he can just hit the road.
Right. His name is Jake Pyburn. He plays linebacker. I'm just going to read off some of these things, some of these guarantees that he wanted. He wanted Florida to guarantee him $45,000 a month, a guaranteed starting position at outside linebacker, guaranteed to play on third downs, and also wanted more snaps in the rotation. And so Florida wasn't willing to agree, and I wouldn't agree either. I say you can go. We're not going to guarantee anything.
Well, he'll end up somewhere, believe it or not, because a lot of teams have heard him say that. That's become so he'll end up somewhere like FIU or something like that. Nothing's wrong with FIU or FAU, but you know, hey,
Well, well,
he won't be at the University of Florida.
that price is going to have to go now because FIU is not going to give him 45 grand a month. Not a linebacker. Maybe if he was a quarterback coming from a big school, if he wants to still get 45 grand a month, he going to end up at Morehead State. No
Well,
disrespect to Morehead State, but he gonna end up somewhere
that
like that.
that's not happening.
Okay, so we agree. Look, I'm all about the kids getting the money, and when my son gets older, and we're looking at colleges and they're offering him money, we want to consider that. But we're not in the business of guaranteeing starting positions and all of that. This is America. You got to compete.
There you
All right. So the last thing, as we get closer to college football or the playoff, I should say. One of the games we talked about last week was Penn State, and they're taking on SMU in Happy Valley. You're all over Penn State. I said, don't be surprised, if SMU gives them a game. I expect Penn State to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if SMU beat them because I just don't like. I don't like the vibes in Happy Valley. And so I know you wanted to talk about this last week. We didn't get to it, so we'll go ahead and talk about it now. A couple weeks ago, the last game of the year before Penn State was getting ready to go to the Big Ten championship against Oregon, they backed their way in because Ohio State lost, but that's besides the point. At the end of the game, James Franklin had a brush up with Mike Loxley, the coach at the University of Maryland. Loxley was upset because Franklin was throwing the ball with 20 seconds left, and they were up 37-7. And so Loxley was basically saying, why are you throwing the ball with 20 seconds left? And so they had a conversation with that because Penn State ended up scoring at the end of the game. They were upset about that at the end of the game, and Franklin, quite frankly, didn't care. He made all these excuses about why he was throwing at the end of the game, and you looked a little bit further into it. What was his reasoning, and do you agree with that?
Well, first of all, let me tell you something. I still coach a little bit. I coach girls flag football team, and I've coached in the high school, college, and all of that. And I'm a firm believer that you can't worry about what the other team is doing as far as scoring. Sure, there's a thing called sportsmanship, but then again, in the climate of college football nowadays, hey, style points count. But this is not even so much about style points. Okay, you said it was 18 seconds, 20 seconds left in the game. He had his second or third string people in the game. Now, those people practice as hard, probably harder than the starters, because you don't want to get the starters hurt. So when they get an opportunity to get into the game, they don't want to just kneel down. They practice all summer, lift weights, worked hard, scout team or whatever. He said those were his third and fourth string, and Loxley had his first string defense in there trying to stop him. So how about this, Loxley? Why don't you get upset about your defense? Why don't you curse your defensive coordinator out? Why don't you get on your team as opposed to worried about the other team? I feel like this. If you want to stop Penn State, then you stop them. How about that? You know, Loxley, I hate to say it, and I know that he coached you at Illinois, and you like
We can keep
Loxley
that out
and
of
that
that. We
kind of
don't have
thing.
to say all that. We can keep that
Well,
out of it.
well, let me just say this. Loxley, I hate to say it, he probably won't be at Maryland very long making those kind of comments because you need to worry about your own team. Don't worry about the other team. Stop them. You don't want them to score? Stop them. Get on your defense instead of getting on this man for, putting in his third and fourth string people against your starters when you were trying to blitz. So I just don't know. Just
Well, I couldn't disagree more. I do agree with the point of you saying just stop them, but I think there's a way that you go about it as a coach. If I'm running the team and I'm James Franklin, I don't care about what the third string players have done. When you bring the third string players when you're playing against Miami of Ohio and you're up 42-0 in the third quarter. Yeah, you let them throw and the playbook is wide open. If you want to get them some run and let them play, then that's fine. You don't need to be trying to throw the ball. That's how players get hurt. You can get hurt running it too, but it's a more conservative play and it's also going to drain the clock. When you're a bush league like James Franklin is, trying to run the score up at the end of the game, that is just it's just bad. It's a bad look because at the end of the day, what he tried to say was, we're trying to make the playoff and style points matter. Hey, Penn State was high enough in the rankings where you beating Maryland 44-7 instead of 37-7 is not going to make a difference. You were going.
I think it was more player development too. These guys.
Okay, you're not going to
outstanding
develop.
players.
You're not going to develop anybody with 20 seconds left against the University of Maryland as you get ready for the playoff. You can develop them in spring practice. You can develop them in practice. That you throwing the ball with 20 seconds left is not going to develop anything. All that does is open your players up to getting hurt. That's my thoughts and opinion on it. Yes, if you're Maryland, yeah, stop them. You should want to stop them. But at the end of the day, when you're a coach, there's just certain unwritten rules that you do, and I'm conservative when it comes to that.
I just would be embarrassed as a coach if I was basically begging for mercy. You know, that's what you're doing, begging for mercy, waving a white flag. I just couldn't do that. You just coach better, and you get on your coaching staff, and you get on your players, you know, because to ask for beg for mercy, please don't score on me, please, the game's over, just let me just doggone kiss the ring. No.
I don't think he was doing that. I was just basically, I think he was telling him at the end of the day, you're a joke as a head coach. You're Bush League as a head coach to even do something like that, because nobody does that. Why do you think they take knees in the NFL? Why don't they do it?
Well, you know, the NFL is totally different. You aren't.
I'm saying,
players.
what's the reasoning? You can't, again. Can you agree that we're not going to develop a player throwing the ball with 20 seconds left?
You might, if the player hadn't been, you know, if that player, that particular quarterback might be your starter next year, that would give him some confidence playing against the other team, as opposed to going to scout team in the spring game.
If that's they blew out enough teams this year where their backup quarterback should have already played. The last
it's
20.
Not about the blowout. It's not about the blowout.
Okay, but whoever their backup quarterback is has already played this year. You're not going to develop anything in the last 20 seconds. That's ridiculous to even say. So again, what is the difference? College is as close to the NFL as we've ever had. What's the difference between them not doing that in NFL and college? What's the difference?
Well, in college, you got probably 100 players, so you can't. In the NFL, you have roughly half of those, so you're not really worried about trying to develop players. In college, you definitely are trying to worry about more about developing players. And the bottom line is, I just don't like a coach asking a coach, please don't score on me, please take a knee. I just don't like that. Stop him.
I don't think he was begging that. I think he was just saying, you're a joke. At the end of the day, you're a joke for that. That's all.
Okay,
and I agree.
Okay, well, if you look at that, which coach do you think is more likely to keep their job next year? If any one of them, you know,
well, I don't know. Loxley just signed a brand new deal this year in Maryland, so I don't know. I tell you what, if Penn State loses to SMU in this first round, James Franklin might be gone because they've been underachieving at Penn State for the last 10 years.
No, they've been pretty respectable. They've been pretty
respectable. They don't win anything. They don't win any big games. So the expectation at Maryland is a lot lower than it is at Penn State. So let them lose to SMU. I bet you Franklin's gonna be on the hot seat. I bet you.
Fans, what do y'all think? You know, make your comments known about this particular subject, because you know I don't like just stop them. I'm a defensive guy. Stop them behind.
And I think that you should have a little bit more sportsmanship. So that'll wrap up this conversation. We know where you stand on it and where I stand on it. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up our show for the week. Remember, like, subscribe, share our podcast, our show. We're trying to get this thing moving, and we'll keep bringing y'all all of the good content on a week-to-week basis.
Until next time, take care. Make sure you tune in to channel 1349.